Why is everybody in opposition to Bernie Sanders? And is Marianne Williamson crazy? Exploring this and more with one of Joe Rogan's clips here today on the Lenses That Liberate podcast. Hey, what's up everyone? Derek here from the Lenses That Liberate podcast. Let's dive right in. So let's listen to what Joe Rogan had to say with his guest here today.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
I mean, that debate last night, did you watch that?
No.
Yeah.
I don't watch them. They pushed Tulsi Gabbard out. I stopped watching them. Like, you guys are out of your fucking mind. She's the most interesting candidate out there.
Yeah, next to Marianne Williamson.
Tulsi Gabbard, as I'm sure you all know, has not made the last debate. And she's a very interesting character, and Joe Rogan really likes her, and so do I. So she wasn't on the stage the last time. So that's what they're speaking about.
Oh, well, that bitch is crazy. Sorry for using that word.
I'm crazy?
No, bitch.
No, okay.
I didn't mean it that way.
Yeah.
I say it, it's a term of endearment. But isn't she like a crystal healer or some shit?
Yeah.
She was trying to come on the podcast too. I was like, she's doing a tour.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a boat with a lot of holes in it, and it ain't going to make it across the harbor.
So I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding about Marianne Williamson. And I think it's unfortunate because for me, she's somebody who has a lot to offer and is offering a very different perspective, like someone like Andrew Yang on the political process. To categorize her as a crystal healer is really not true. And I'm a little surprised to hear Joe Rogan say that because he's into ayahuasca and so many other things that are maybe a little more counterculture. I'm surprised that he hasn't researched that more or hasn't heard from a guest in the past. That's simply not true. Firstly, she's been asked that many times in interviews, and she has no interest in crystal healing. Now, I think what they're alluding to in a more general way there is that she's a spiritual teacher. So in that sense, she's definitely involved with more subtle ways of seeing, more subtle ways of relating to herself. And to mainstream culture still, that's very shocking. Unfortunately, as a mainstream culture yet, we haven't yet found a way to hold both logic and rationality and also more subtle forms of relating to ourselves. And when I listen to the critiques of Marianne Williamson out there that she's crazy or she's into crystal healing, I think that's what's showing up. That as a society, we haven't yet bridged that gap. And my hope in the future is that Joe Rogan has somebody on there that's able to do that a little bit more. Because when it comes to so many things, I find him incredibly open. I listen to him all the time. He talks about plant medicines and he's willing to explore so many things. And it's unfortunate here that he hasn't yet seen the value of what Marianne Williamson was bringing.
It's like talking to one of your aunts, right? One of your crazy aunts.
Yeah, it's into crystals.
Comes over for the holidays, And he said, "What are you doing?" "Well, I made you a dream catcher." And I think, "Okay, thank you." So,
a dream catcher. I think Bernie Sanders has some interesting thoughts. And talking to him in person, in real life, I like him a lot. Mm-hmm. He's not like what he comes off in those goddamn debates, because those debates are ridiculous. You get 5 people in front of the camera. You ask them a question. They have 30 seconds to answer it. Everybody else is jumping in, yelling things out. They're all trying to get a sound bite.
That's all it is. It's not actually a debate. I mean, remember, debate club. I mean, it was, and it's not that. It's exactly what you said. It's sound bites, a series of sound bites. They're all looking to have a moment.
Yeah.
They don't want to screw up, so they want to have a kind of a safe moment.
Right.
And they go through. I agree with you. I like Bernie because he's been consistent. You can go back to the 80s.
Yeah.
And he's saying the same shit that he's saying now.
That's a really true point. That if you check Bernie's history, he has been so consistent on all of the issues. He's the only candidate on the stage that has been consistently saying the same thing since the 1970s. And I really like that about many of the news outlets who don't support him. At least they acknowledge that. I've seen Fox News and many others acknowledge it. That Bernie has been incredibly consistent throughout his career. And whether you like his policies or not, you really know what he stands for. He's not kidding around.
Yeah.
And I think there is something to that. Now, I don't buy his arguments, I don't, but I like the guy, and I like the fact that he's consistent and he means what he says. And so I can separate out liking him from liking his policies.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem there, but I don't think they're going to let Bernie. There was a moment, I'll tell you about last night on this debate thing, where I think it was the CNN moderator. She asked Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren had come out the other day and said that she had a private conversation with Bernie. And during the conversation, Bernie said, a woman's never going to win. That's my Bernie. Yeah. A woman's never going to win or can't win being president. He was more eloquent than that, but the voice sounded just like it. And so he's denied it. So the moderator last night during this debate asked Bernie Sanders, let me just be clear, she said, are you saying that you've never said this to Elizabeth Warren? And Bernie said, absolutely not. Very next words out of the moderator's mouth was she turned to Elizabeth Warren and said, so, Senator Warren, when Bernie said to you that he never, when Bernie said to you that a woman couldn't be president, how did you feel?
Jesus Christ.
That was it. And so I think that they're not even trying now to hide the fact that they want to marginalize Sanders.
Yeah.
Right? So
why did they want to marginalize him?
Because I think they feel he can't. There's no way he can win.
Is that what it is?
I think that's a tiny piece of the puzzle. I think it might be true that many people in the DNC feel that Bernie Sanders can't beat Joe Biden. I think that's possible, and that's certainly a factor. But I don't think that's the main factor at all. The reality is that Bernie fundamentally represents something very different from the mainstream Democratic Party. And if Bernie is elected, those people will no longer be in power in the Democratic Party. Bernie, Tulsi Gabbard, and some of the more other radical candidates, if they're elected, there will be a fundamental power shift in the Democratic Party. So it's very little to do with that he can't win, and much more a sense of safety for the people in power in that organization, that their jobs will be lost. They'll no longer be part of that.
Yeah, I think on a national level,
I think Elizabeth Warren can win after lying about being Native American for her whole life?
Yeah.
That's a fucking big one to me.
After seeing what Elizabeth Warren did to Bernie Sanders in the last few days, I have to say I've lost some respect for her. And I'd find it much harder to vote for her if she was the nominee. But my sense is the whole story around her claiming Native American heritage is very misconstrued, and she's not doing much to help herself in that either. From my understanding of things, she grew up in a family culture where everyone had been telling her for years and years that she had Native heritage. This was not something she made up, it was something that was in her family since she was a young person. So, like many of us who believe things our family tells us, she believed that was true and she acted on it. Now going in opposition to Trump about it, and Facebook living opening the results of her DNA test, I think was a big mistake, and has cost her dearly. And claiming that 0.001% or whatever it is that she's found that she does have of that lineage is really so little that to most people, obviously, that does not count. But I think it would have been a lot more genuine for her to come out then and to say, you know what, I made a mistake here. I grew up in a family that I was told this from a young age, and I was mistaken. Very simple. But in this day and age in politics and in so many other places where if we show any weakness, we're so crucified for it, politicians and many public figures feel like they can't do that. And so that's my sense why Elizabeth Warren didn't come out with that sooner. I'm very confident she was not actively lying about that. If you're interested in hearing more commentary like this, subscribe below.